Hi, this is Barbie, and this is episode number 2 of the Real Talk podcast. Today, we're talking about how perfect doesn't exist. It's literally not a thing. So, why do we spend so much time chasing after it, trying to be it, and to smile and fake it? Look around at the people you follow and admire. Are they perfect? No way. I bet they try new things in life, they put themselves out there, and they make mistakes. And I just don't mean people who are on big stages leading big empires or have loud voices. I mean anyone in your life that you like and admire, from the friend who's going through a hard time to someone who is just great to be around. Pay attention to what they're like. I guarantee that they don't give off that perfect illusion. Perfect isn't a thing. If it were, it would be boring anyway. And I definitely don't like hanging out with boring people. No thanks. Let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. You're listening to the Real Talk podcast, a place for you to come and learn things about the real stuff that you're going through. Not the bright, shiny stuff we see on everyone's feeds, but the gritty, messy parts in the middle that need to be heard to heal. You matter here, and you're not alone. I care about leveling up and helping you do the same. Whatever leveling up means to you, whether that's in business, performance, or parenting. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Real Talk podcast. I'm pumped to be bringing you episode number 2. This one is a bit of a spinoff from the last one because I kept thinking about perfectionism and how I had so much to say about it. As I was poking around on the internet and seeing about what other people had to say, I got really curious as to why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we shy away from doing the things that we actually really want to do? Because we're scared to show ourselves in a light that doesn't necessarily look perfect. Who are we actually trying to impress? Who are we really doing it for? Guess what? I bet you it's not who you actually think it is. As the famous physicist Stephen Hawking said, one of the basic rules of the universe is that nothing is perfect. Perfection simply doesn't exist. Without imperfection, neither you nor I would exist. I mean, I think we can agree. He was a pretty smart guy. So why are we chasing after some illusion that doesn't exist? I don't have to have an IQ of 160 to think that doesn't really make any sense. So if we stop and think about it, maybe I should stop doing that. If we know that perfect doesn't exist and there is absolutely no point in trying to achieve it, then how do we define what is a win for us? Or a loss? What makes something worth doing or makes us decide to pass on it and put it on a shelf or move on to doing something else? Of course, if we use math or science sometimes as a definition of success, if you get 10 out of 10 on your test, that's perfect, and your parents were probably pretty happy about that when you were in school. You were probably pretty proud of yourself and you'd be happy to do it again and study hard for the next time. You'd be motivated, and that seemed like perfection. But life isn't always like that. There's no grades and there's no score. I think we've all found that life is a little different outside the walls of high school in many ways. Yes, some of the people that we know may still be stuck there, but we can save that for another episode. The thing that I've come to realize is that we get to define our own lives. We get to decide what is perfect, or at least what is pretty great to us. Maybe the life you have now isn't the one you thought you would always have. Maybe the fairy tale you dreamed up when you were a kid isn't really panning out. There's lots of twists and turns and things that happen that come out of nowhere. So if the plan you made didn't happen, does that mean it's not good? Does that mean it's not perfect? Does that mean it's not a win? What is pretty great to me might not be the same for you. I have no desire to be a chef, for example. That is not something that has ever been in my plans or desires. I enjoy cooking once in a while, but I have never had that in my realm of consciousness. Maybe it is for you. Maybe you want to be the next Gordon Ramsay. Maybe living in a treehouse 1,000 feet off the ground would be amazing to you. I would probably puke from being up that high. What we consider good, perfect, or otherwise in life is different for each one of us. And guess what? It can also change throughout our lives too. Stuff happens, plans change, people come and go, life goes on. We get to define our outlook and what we want and where we're going. So if I use this podcast, for example, I did the first episode. It was definitely not perfect. I was not in a fancy sound booth. Of course, I would have wanted to be. I was actually in my closet. But I took the photo to remember it. I did not have the checklist complete of all the things that I wanted to get done before I did my first recording. I did the first run through without it actually recording. Yeah, I did that. Thought I pushed the button. Didn't actually happen. I was so bummed. But I did it again. I don't think that I did it as great as the first time I did it, but I kept moving forward. So to me, that was a huge win. I have had a nearly 100 downloads in the last week, and I haven't even launched the thing yet. So to me, that's pretty cool. And P.S., you are one of the reasons I feel so pumped about it. Thank you for being here and thank you for listening. So what would have perfect looked like for that first recording? Yes, I could have had a video of it. I would have had way more things to share. I didn't have that. And I could have had the next 3 interviews booked, which I don't. Those things were all on my perfect list to have done before I hit published. But then I said, screw it, let's go. I was ready to stop thinking about it and I was ready to take action. Sometimes you just have to bet on yourself and get going. I used to wear myself out when we would have people over for big dinner parties. Everything had to be perfect. I wanted the house to be clean, the towels to be just right. There was always decorations and appies and everything was there for everybody. Never mind the actual dinner. Of course, that had to be perfect too. The table was Pinterest worthy, and that was even before Pinterest was a thing. Everyone had a great time, and back then, having the perfect night to me was a success. I felt like that made me a success. Or it felt like it at the time. But what if the bathroom wasn't clean? Would it still have been fun? Or if we ordered Chinese, would we still have had a great time with friends? No one expects you to be the perfect host. And to be honest, when I'm over at someone else's house who doesn't have a perfectly clean house and a kitchen sink and there's kid stuff everywhere, I like it better. That means this person is comfortable with me around. They're just like me. They're real and I don't have to fake it around them. Let's think about that for a minute. Just be yourself. Seriously. Yes, I know your kids have toothpaste all over the sink. Or maybe your dishes were piled high because you work late at the office. You're human, a perfectly imperfect thing, which is pretty great. So what's the point here, Barb? What are we getting at? I think we all just need to remember that no one cares if you're perfect. Again, it's not a thing anyways. They care that you are you. Your job is to figure out who that is. You don't need to hide out and be scared to say hi to the person you want to be friends with or write the blog you have been itching to start. We use perfectionism as an excuse to not get started. I definitely do. We think, well, my house is a disaster, so I can't invite them over next week. Guess what? Yes, you can. You make the rules. You get to decide what those rules are. Is having a podcast more important to me than checking off all the things that I had on my list? Yep. Do I sure wish that I started sooner? Absolutely. Is having a charades night in your home with your cousin that you haven't seen in a year more important than toothpaste and dishes? For sure. Life is perfect the way it is. The thing we do to make it imperfect is not being ourselves. The only person you are scared to let down is yourself. But guess what? You get to decide what letting down means. You get to decide what is a win and what is a loss. So stop aiming for the perfect. If you do that, either you won't achieve it or you just won't start, which both seem like a loss to me. If we really stop to think about it, we use other people as an excuse. So-and-so will judge me. That one might say something to so-and-so if I post this or that. Yeah, they might. Especially if they're one of those mean girls still stuck in high school. But you know what you're more afraid of? Letting yourself down. Not impressing yourself. Think about it for real. You know that's true. Yours is the only opinion that matters. And what do I really want for you? I want you to be proud of yourself. I want you to step into your light and level up. Get over it. Realize you matter and no one cares whether you are perfect or not. Perfect is boring anyways. Blah, blah, blah. No one likes boring, even people with high IQs. Thank you so much for listening to the end. I would love to hear your feedback and especially know if I made you laugh. I would really love for you to leave some stars and a review. That helps this podcast grow and get to more people and be what I know it can be. I can't wait to do it again. Talk to you soon. I'm so glad you came. Thank you for listening to the Real Talk podcast with Barbie. This is the place for you to come and learn things about the real stuff that we're all going through. Make sure you check out the show notes, links to social media, and information on any guests that we had on the show. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad you came.